You've been lied to your entire life. They told you that expressing your emotions makes you authentic, that vulnerability is courage, that sharing your pain makes you strong. But look around. Look at the men who crumble under pressure, who collapse when challenged, who break when life strikes back. These are not strong men. These are emotionally dependent men who confused weakness for connection. And the world feeds on them every single day. Because a man who cannot control his emotions is a man who cannot control his life. And a man who cannot control his life is not a man at all. He is a puppet, dancing to the strings pulled by fear, insecurity, and external validation. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's not about becoming cold or detached. It's about forging something far more dangerous, emotional steel. A core so unshakable that nothing, not rejection, not betrayal, not loss, can move you off your axis. This is what separates the men who lead from the men who follow. The men who shape reality from the men who react to it. And if you're still here, it's because something inside you knows you've been living beneath your potential. You've been emotionally soft. And today, that ends. Let's start with the brutal truth. Most men today are emotionally weak, not because they feel emotions, but because they are enslaved by them. They wake up with anxiety, they move through the day controlled by other people's opinions, they make decisions based on fear of judgment. They avoid confrontation because they can't handle discomfort. They seek validation from strangers on screens. They need constant reassurance that they matter, that they're worthy, that they're enough. And when they don't get it, they spiral. This is not strength, this is fragility. And it's epidemic, you see it everywhere. The man who can't handle criticism without shutting down. The man who needs his partner to constantly affirm his value. The man who changes his behavior based on who's watching. The man who avoids hard conversations because he's terrified of conflict. These men are not living, they're surviving, they're reacting, they're waiting for permission to exist. And that permission never comes because the world doesn't reward weakness, it exploits it. So why did this happen? How did an entire generation of men become so emotionally fragile? Simple. They were conditioned that way. From childhood, you were told to share your feelings, to talk about your emotions, to express your pain. And while that sounds compassionate, it became a trap because no one taught you how to process those emotions. No one taught you how to transmute pain into power. No one taught you how to sit with discomfort without collapsing. Instead, you were taught to outsource your emotional state to therapists, to partners, to friends, to social media. You became dependent on external sources for internal stability, and that dependency is what made you weak. Because emotional strength is not about having someone to lean on. It's about being the pillar that doesn't need support. It's about being so grounded in yourself that external chaos doesn't shake you. And that's what most men have never learned. Here's the first principle. Emotions are information, not commands. When you feel fear, it's not telling you to run. It's telling you to assess. When you feel anger, it's not telling you to explode. It's telling you something matters. When you feel sadness, it's not telling you to collapse. It's telling you to process. But most men don't know this. They feel an emotion and immediately obey it. Fear shows up and they avoid. Anger shows up and they lash out. Sadness shows up and they spiral. This is emotional slavery, and it's why you're weak. Because you're not in control, your emotions are. So the first step to emotional steel is this: separation. You must learn to separate yourself from what you feel. You are not your emotions. You are the observer of your emotions. When fear arises, you don't become fear. You notice fear. You say, I am experiencing fear right now. That simple shift creates space. And in that space, you regain control. Because now you can choose how to respond. You can choose whether to act on it or let it pass. You can choose whether it serves you or sabotages you. This is the beginning of power. Now let's go deeper. Emotional weakness comes from attachment. Attachment to outcomes, attachment to people, attachment to your identity. You want something to happen, and when it doesn't, you crumble. You need someone to stay, and when they leave, you break. You define yourself by a role, and when that role is threatened, you collapse. This is why you're fragile, because you've built your emotional stability on external factors, and external factors are always unstable. They change, they leave, they fail, and when they do, you fall apart because you never built an internal foundation. You never learned to stand alone. Emotional steel requires that you become self-sufficient, not isolated, not disconnected, but complete in yourself. You must reach a point where nothing outside of you is required for your peace, not a relationship, not a job, not validation, not approval, nothing. This doesn't mean you don't care, it means you don't need. And when you stop needing, you stop being vulnerable to loss, because you've already accepted that everything is temporary. People leave, situations change, life moves, and you remain stable, regardless. Let me give you a scenario. You're in a relationship, your partner criticizes you. How do you respond? If you're emotionally weak, you react, you get defensive, you justify, you explain, you seek reassurance. You need them to take it back, to validate you, to tell you you're still enough. And in that moment, you've handed them your power. Because now your emotional state depends on their words. But if you have emotional steel, you respond differently. You hear the criticism, you process it, you assess whether it's valid. If it is, you adjust. If it's not, you dismiss it. But you don't collapse, you don't panic, you don't need them to fix what they said. Because your sense of self is not up for negotiation. It's not dependent on their opinion. It's anchored in your own internal knowing. And that's what makes you unshakable. This applies to everything: rejection, failure, loss, betrayal. When you have emotional steel, these things still hurt, but they don't break you, because you've built something inside yourself that can't be destroyed by external circumstances. Now let's address the lie. Vulnerability equals strength. This idea has destroyed more men than any war, because it convinced you that exposing your weaknesses is courage, that sharing your insecurities is power, that crying in public is authenticity. And while there's a time and place for openness, the reality is this: vulnerability without strength is just weakness on display. You don't build emotional steel by constantly airing your pain. You build it by processing your pain in private and emerging stronger. You don't become powerful by telling everyone how broken you are. You become powerful by fixing yourself in silence and showing up unshakable. This doesn't mean you never share. It means you're selective. You don't spill your emotions to everyone who asks. You guard your inner world. You protect your mental space. You only open up to those who have earned access. And even then, you don't collapse. You share from a place of strength, not desperation, because true vulnerability is not weakness exposed. It's strength revealed. Here's another layer. Emotional weakness is often disguised as empathy. You think you're being sensitive, caring, compassionate, but really you're just emotionally reactive. Someone cries and you absorb their pain. Someone's angry and you take it on. Someone rejects you and you spiral. This is not empathy. This is emotional porousness. And it's killing you, because you're letting the emotional states of others dictate your own. You're a sponge, soaking up everything around you. And by the end of the day, you're drained, anxious, overwhelmed. Why? Because you never learned boundaries. You never learned that their emotions are not yours to carry. You can observe someone's pain without absorbing it. You can witness someone's anger without internalizing it. You can hear someone's rejection without making it about your worth. This is Emotional steel. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It's the ability to remain centered in your own energy, regardless of what's happening around you. And that centeredness is magnetic, because people feel it. They sense that you're not reactive, that you're not fragile, that you can't be thrown off balance, and that makes them respect you, trust you, and, ironically, feel safer around you, because you're stable, and stability is rare. Let's talk about the role of pain. Most men try to avoid pain. At all costs, they numb it with distractions, they bury it with work, they drown it with substances, they run from it with relationships, and in doing so, they never process it, they never learn from it, they never grow from it. Pain avoided is pain prolonged, and that unprocessed pain becomes emotional baggage. It shows up as anxiety, as anger, as insecurity, as neediness. It controls you from the shadows. But pain, when faced directly, is a forge. It's where emotional steel is created. Every time you sit with discomfort and don't collapse, you get stronger. Every time you face rejection and don't spiral, you build resilience. Every time you experience loss and don't break, you forge unshakability. This is how warriors are made. Not by avoiding battle, but by walking through fire and coming out tempered. So stop running from pain, stop numbing it, stop distracting yourself from it. Sit with it, feel it, let it burn through you. And when it passes, and it will pass, you'll realize something. You're still standing, you're still whole, and you're stronger than you were before. Now let's address the social dimension, because emotional weakness doesn't just hurt you, it makes you a target. People sense weakness, they feel it. And whether consciously or not, they exploit it. They test you. They manipulate you. They push your buttons to see if you'll react. And if you do, they know they can control you. This is why emotional steel is not just internal strength. It's social armor. When you're unshakable, people can't manipulate you. They can't guilt you. They can't pressure you. They can't use your emotions against you because you're not reactive. You're responsive. And that makes you dangerous, not in a violent way, but in a powerful way. You become someone who can't be moved, someone who can't be bought, someone who can't be broken. And that makes you a force. This is what leaders, warriors, and kings understood. Emotional control is the foundation of power. Because the man who controls himself can control his environment, and the man who controls his environment shapes reality. Here's a practice. Exposure to discomfort. You don't build emotional steel by staying comfortable. You build it by deliberately placing yourself in situations that challenge you. Public speaking, cold showers, difficult conversations, physical pain, rejection, confrontation. Each of these is a test, and each time you face them without collapsing, you get stronger. This is not about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about training your nervous system to handle stress without breaking. It's about teaching your mind that discomfort is not danger, that you can feel fear and still act, that you can experience pain and still stand. This is how you go from emotionally weak to emotionally steel, not through affirmations, not through therapy sessions, but through deliberate, repeated exposure to the things that challenge you. And over time, what once terrified you becomes manageable. What once broke you becomes bearable. And what once controlled you becomes irrelevant, because you've trained yourself to be unshakable. Let's talk about identity. Most men build their identity on unstable ground. Their job, their relationship, their appearance, their achievements. And when any of those things are threatened, their entire sense of self collapses. This is emotional weakness at its core, because you've anchored your identity in things that can be taken away. But emotional steel requires that your identity be anchored in something unchangeable. Your principles, your values, your character. These things can't be taken from you. They can't be lost. They can't be destroyed. When you define yourself by your integrity, by your discipline, by your ability to stand firm in your truth, you become untouchable. Because no external circumstance can shake what's internal. People can reject you, and you remain. Opportunities can disappear, and you remain. Relationships can end, and you remain. Because you are not defined by what happens to you. You're defined by how you respond. And that response, that choice, that is where your power lives. Now let's address the final level. Emotional steel in relationships. This is where most men fail. Because they enter relationships from a place of need. They need affection. They need validation. They need companionship. And that need makes them weak, because the moment you need someone, you give them control over you. They can withhold, they can manipulate, they can use your need against you. But when you have emotional steel, you enter relationships from a place of wholeness. You don't need a partner to complete you. You're already complete. You want them, but you don't need them. And that distinction changes everything. Because now you're choosing to be with them, not depending on them. And that freedom makes you a better partner. Because you're not clingy, you're not insecure, you're not constantly seeking reassurance. You're stable, you're grounded, you're present. And that presence is magnetic because it's rare. Most people are needy, most people are reactive, most people are emotionally fragile. But you're not. And that makes you stand out. Not because you're trying to, but because you've built something inside yourself that most people never will. So here's the transformation. You stop being the man who collapses under pressure. You become the man who thrives in it. You stop being the man who needs validation. You become the man who validates himself. You stop being the man who's controlled by his emotions. You become the man who uses his emotions as fuel. And in that transformation, you become dangerous, not to others, but to the version of yourself that was weak. You kill that version, you bury it, and you rise as something new, something unbreakable, something forged in fire. This is emotional steel. This is what separates the boys from the men, the followers from the leaders, the victims from the victors. And if you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to stop being emotionally weak, ready to forge inner steel, ready to become the man who can't be shaken, can't be broken, can't be moved. So here's your challenge. Write this in the comments. I am forged in fire, not for me, not for validation, but as a declaration, as a commitment, as the first step toward becoming unshakable. And if you're ready to continue this journey, to dive deeper into the truths that most men are too afraid to face, subscribe, because this channel is not for the comfortable. It's for the ones who are ready to burn away the old and rise as steel. Welcome to the Forge. I'll see you in the next one, or I won't, because now you don't need me, you don't need anyone. And that's exactly the point.